On this episode of our show, I want to tell you about someone I met recently. I was invited to speak at an event. I love getting out and speaking and meeting people. It's one of my favorite things about this job. So this event was happening at Orchard Knob Missionary Baptist Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee on Veterans Day. And a few weeks before the event, I go for a quick meeting with the woman who invited me. Her name is Diane Williams. She's awesome. The event was awesome. So during that meeting, Diane told me about a man who was going to be there and said he had written a book. Well, she let me borrow a copy of the book. The book is called Absent Without Official Leave in Saigon, written by Robert L. Rice. Now, I've read a lot of books about the military and veterans and combat and all these types of things. I've seen movies and documentaries and TV shows, as most people have. I've served in the military, and I've met a lot of other people who have served in the military, but I can truly say I've never read or heard a story quite like this. This is a short clip from that speech that I gave back on Veterans Day. Before I go, I got a book loaned to me by Miss Diane, written by Mr. Robert L. Rice. Mr. Rice, you here? Yeah, there you are. Come on up here. Come on up here. Y'all, I have read some stories about veterans. I have watched movies. I have seen documentaries. I've talked to veterans. I've told stories. We've been doing this for a decade. I've never heard anything like this before. Whoa. Goodness gracious. This is a story. He's going to make his way up here, I think. My man, you are something else. Come on up here. I met him when I walked in today, and I told him the same thing I just told you guys. I mean, this story is, whoa. Will you sit with me and tell me this on TV? Yeah. In front of the camera? Yeah. We're going to put this man's story on TV. All right? I appreciate you, my man. I really do. Thanks for your service. Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I can't wait to talk to this man. I mean, woo! This is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This is the podcast that tells the stories of the people who call the Tennessee Valley home. We discuss the problems we're all facing, and we talk to people who are working on solutions. I'm Josh Rowe. I'll be your host for this journey. So that part of our open we play on every episode, the part talking about the people who call the Tennessee Valley home. That is where this story lies. I went to interview Mr. Rice just yesterday, and I'm working on a story about him on our Price of Freedom series on News Channel 9 and Fox Chattanooga coming up on December 19th. But the conversation was so powerful, I wanted to share part of that conversation here with you.
I think about Vietnam every day. Just about every day, some thoughts, even at night. Thoughts will be about Vietnam. If I see Vietnamese people and hear them talk, I can pick up on some of the language. I used to be able to speak it real well at one time. And now since I've been back home, by me not speaking it, I have forgotten some of the terms. But when I hear it, I know some of the things that they're saying I can pick up on. Yeah, Vietnam will always be with me.
Tell me about, you said you think about it every day. What do you think about?
I was there for 3 years, and I think about the combat part of it, and I also think about the time when I lived downtown. I lived downtown in Saigon for 6 months. I was AWOL for 6 months. I got captured for about 2 days. I escaped from captivity and went back to Saigon for another 6 months. So there's a lot I think about my time that I was there. You know, like I said, the wartime, being shot in Vietnam, and the experience I've had when I thought I almost died, and I had this encounter with an angel. At the time, I didn't know it was an angel. I was trying to die, and the angel was trying to get me to live. And the angel brought back my mother, father, and I said, yeah, I'm going to miss them. But whatever this peace is that I have, I want more of that. Because I was shot in the hip, the bullet came out my back. And the medic, when he treated me for the back wound. He didn't treat me for my hip, and I constantly bled out my hip. So I was in excruciating pain. And we didn't wear underclothes, so there I am half naked on the battlefield. And I looked over and saw a friend of mine, he had got shot in the head, and half of his head was hanging off. He was crawling on the ground, calling for his mother. And with the pain that I was in, and it was looking so bad, I said, Lord, I'm ready to die. You can come get me right now, because it didn't look like we were going to get out of this mess. So when I prayed that prayer that I was ready to go, I had the best peace I ever had in my life. I was fully conscious. I could barely hear the noise, and we were right up under the thick of the battle. And I had no more pain. But I had the best peace I ever had in my life. Matter of fact, I have never felt like that since. So I figured I was dying, and I was getting ready to get out of this situation. And then this man sit beside me. I could see him, but I could also see through him. And the kind of clothes he had on were kind of like glistening, you know. And he talked with me telepathically. And he asked me about my mother and father, and I said, yeah, okay, that's fine, but I want more of this peace. And then he said, well, what about your wife? Well, we haven't been married that long. And I thought, well, I really don't want to leave her. And then the angel told me, he said, it's not your time to die. You're not going to die. And when he said that, he disappeared. When he disappeared, all the noise came back, the pain come back. I realized I might get hit again, but I wouldn't die. That's the confidence that I had. And at the time, I didn't know it was an angel. It didn't come to me that it was an angel until some 20 years later, after reading scripture that angels are ministering spirits. And this lady at Union Grove Baptist Church was singing this song all day, all night, angels keep watch over us. And then the Holy Ghost allowed me to understand that there was an angel that I had an encounter with. Because after that happened, I tried to push all that out of my mind. And then that day I had killed some people that I knew I had killed. That was on my mind. And so Sergeant Poole came and pulled me out and said, we got to get you out of here, Rice. I said, yeah, let's go. So he put my bad leg over my good leg and pulled me out from under the thick of the shooting. And then they got me back to what they call a staging area. And in this area, they determined who should go to get better help or who was going to die. I would hate to be the person that determined that, because some of the people they determined was going to die lived. I knew one boy, he got shot in the knee and he died of shock, you know. So, and that's where they discovered that I was shot in the hip. And then that's when they patched that hip up. But like that angel told me that it wasn't my time to die. So yeah, that's constantly on my mind. And I know one day when I do leave this earth, I'm going to see that angel again.
You said you didn't realize it for 20 years. What did you think it was?
I shoved it out of my mind. I kept it out of my mind. I never wanted to write this book, period. But Cecil was a combat wounded veteran who talked with veterans who suffer from PTSD. And at the time, I didn't know that I had PTSD. So Cecil was the one that says, you really need to write a book. But when I went in there to talk with him, you know, I was just going to go in, talk to him, you know, and try to fool him that I had it.
Yeah. Before we get too far in that, tell me who Cecil was. Was he a counselor at the VA?
Cecil was a counselor at the VA who helped veterans who were suffering from PTSD to recognize that they do have it and how to help them deal with it. So
what year did you meet Cecil?
Oh, man.
Roughly. Just kind of 20 years ago, 15 years ago?
Oh, it 20, let's see, it had to be 30 years ago. Yeah.
And at that point, had you been diagnosed with PTSD? What'd you know? Because 30 years ago, we didn't talk about it like we do today.
No. I don't know. Somebody told me that, you ought to try for PTSD, for being compensated. And I thought, well, I'm not suffering from PTSD. I'm not crazy. And so when I went to go talk with Cecil, I'm thinking I'm gonna fool him that I do have PTSD. And when I got to talking with him, he started talking about the ball games and all that. He got me real relaxed and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, bam, he hit me with, what was the worst thing that happened to you in Vietnam? And the same day that I got shot, a good friend of mine who was a Filipino, he and I came in the country at the same time. He got killed that same day. And they were throwing dead bodies and wounded bodies in the truck in the same truck. And I'm laying on my stomach and they throw him up there. He's got his steel pot on and his head is moving and I'm thinking I'm trying to wake him up. Well, when I told Cecil about that, I broke out, start crying. And I never realized how much that affected me, even to today. But at least I realize what it is that affects me and makes me do the things that I do. And when I told Cecil, when I left out of there that day, and Cecil said, look, a lot of veterans will not come back when that happened to them. He said, but you need to come back and let's talk about this. And so in the course of my talking about my experiences in Vietnam and that I was there for some 3 years, he said, listen, he said, I've heard a lot of stories from veterans. He said, but I've never heard of one like this. He said, Robert, you need to write a book. And every time I talk with him, he said, have you started the book? I said, oh, no, not yet. He said, stay on, you got to get on the book. So I'd write so much of it and then I get depressed and I put it down. So after I retired from the post office, I finally finished it.
How long?
It was published in 2015. But it took me a long time to write that book because whenever I get started and stop, then I'd have to start back over to see where I was, to try to continue to the book.
How comfortable are you now? I mean, obviously we're talking today on camera. How comfortable are you now talking about all the details?
Well, Cecil let me know you got to talk about it because it's there in you and it's going to come out some kind of way.
Again, our story with Mr. Rice will first air 10 p.m. on Fox Chattanooga on Tuesday, December 19th. I hope you join us for that story then. You have been listening to Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. We hope you join us again real soon.